Welcome to the Retail Media Moguls podcast, brought to you by Platform 195. We share trends and strategies across retail media to help you accelerate your brand growth. I'm your host, Stuart Adamson. Welcome to the Retail Media Moguls podcast. I'm your host, Stuart Adamson, founder and CEO of Platform 195. Today, we have the privilege of welcoming Jason Rivarola, a seasoned leader in the realm of marketing analytics and retail media strategy. With a career spanning roles at global giants like Adidas and Hudson's Bay, Jason brings a wealth of experience and insight to the table. From pioneering analytic applications to building out all the tech for Hudson's Bay retail media division, Jason has played a pivotal role in shaping the landscape of retail media on both global and localized scale, both brand side and sell side. His track record of success in optimizing retail media campaigns and leveraging technology to enhance performance speaks volumes about his expertise in this ever-evolving field. Welcome to the show, Jason.
Thank you, Stuart. Thank you so much. And thank you for the introduction. That was great.
You're welcome. I think that's the longest one I've done, actually. So congratulations. We have to go back and have a measure them all. It's been an amazing journey for you because you've obviously built the retail media division within Hudson's Bay. But prior to that, you were at Adidas buying retail media across retail media networks. So you've kind of done the buy and sell side. And now you're back into sort of managing both the buy side for Hudson's Bay itself, as well as the suppliers as well. Is that right? Give us a little insight into that journey.
I had my career with Adidas, and I had the pleasure of being able to start in North America, in Canada, and then through there grow to different opportunities and in different markets, extending that to Amsterdam and working with the European team, and then eventually making my way to the global head office in Germany. The team I was working there primarily focused on how we show up for Adidas and third-party organizations or our partner organizations, better said. So Amazons, the Zalandos, the Hudson's Bays of the world. And through there, the focus I had was specifically on the analytics measurement and also how we showed up on any of the retail media networks. So that was my first introduction into retail media. And that's really where it opened my eyes in terms of the power of retail media. I recall we were running a test with one of our largest partners, Zalando in Europe. And it was the first time I was exposed to sponsored products, on-site banners, that we would do this directly with a vendor as opposed to going through the means of Google or a social media platform. And in that, I was able to witness not only the potential that the platform itself, because it does have its loyalty and its consumers that come to the site and are able to purchase, and they're able to get actually access to that great traffic that's actually looking for a product. It might be lower in the conversion funnel. So you might have actually a better opportunity and a better return than you would traditionally have on social media or some other platform where you're actually focusing more on mid or upper funnel. But also we were able to see that the banners or the vendors themselves were actually able to pull and ask more from the brands themselves. And what I mean by that is, in the case of our relationship with like Zalando or Amazon, it's no longer just about who has the money to pay for the advertising, but also who has the proper product. And to give you an example would be if myself, Adidas, and a competitor B both said we're willing to pay $2 for this consumer to see our ad, Zalando would then go back and say, okay, I have two vendors, but who's going to give me the better conversion rate, which is the standard. But in addition to that, who has a better size curve and who has better stock fill rate? So who has better imaging, better assets, who has a lower return rate? So Zalando themselves would not only pitch and try to make that sale in terms of the ad placement, but also would say, what's going to benefit my organization as a whole? And what's going to benefit my consumer to come to a PDP, come to an actual product description page and be able to see a product that they might fall in love with and also see that it has full stock, as opposed to coming to the page and then seeing, oh, there's no stock, there's not great reviews, or they end up purchasing it and returning it, right? So it was quite interesting. And I was able to use those learnings from then when I moved over to Hudson's Bay and when we developed the whole brand new retail media network to say, how can we do this that not only benefits the brands that are looking to advertise through us, but also are able to benefit our consumers so they're getting the best product. And third, and lastly, and probably most importantly for myself and my job, is how am I going to benefit our organization, not only bringing in dollars, but helping in bring in better net dollars.
So how did you do that?
I took the learnings from Adidas and focusing on a lot of the systems and platforms that we work with today, traditionally just focus on top line. They focus on ROAS. I give them $1, they're able to bring me back $5. So you got a 5-to-1 ROAS. Great. but no one ever takes the consideration, or typically not most organizations or platforms take the consideration of what's the net profit for the organization that's working with you? What happens after the sale? So what we were able to do on our side is we started, first of all, with enabling data and bringing in analytics, but also using that information to say what's going to be our profitability. How much can we actually spend in advertising a specific product? What's our net value for our actual product? So we took that information and we were able to say, if you have specific brands that meet certain margin thresholds, we will classify them as category 1, as category 2. You got to take into consideration also when it comes to two different products, if it's a marketplace vendor versus our own product, and putting those in the same realm. There is obviously, we want to promote both products, but at the same time, we got to make sure that we take into consideration the cost and the impact to both of them. And the last piece is taking into consideration, consumer sentiment in terms of returns, in terms of ratings and reviews, and being able to add that into the parameters that are used to actually measure whether vendor A or vendor B gets that placement on our site.
And was that done in real time, or is that effectively you categorized this set opportunity and these products get that, or was it done in real time based on what?
So it all starts with old school pen and paper. And from there, we built out our concept and try to get into automation, and then really working with our partners and finding the right partner that was going to allow us to be able to input that information. Now, as of today, it's not every single platform that we've been able to sway this way. I would call it low hanging fruit and it's beneficial, but there are some partners. It's a very evolving space. So there's a lot of different projects that our partners are looking to evolve in, and they're coming up with some great things. Not everyone has this at the top of their list. Now, what we've been able to do is with the partners that we do set up for our on-site products, they have been able to incorporate this and assist us in wherever we cannot already fully automate this through their platform, that we can feed them that information through a feed through our side.
Yeah. And is that largely on sponsored products, or is it on display and other formats as well?
Yeah, so it's on sponsored products, because sponsored products will vary quite a bit in terms of the cost of the actual sale. And for all of your listeners and viewers, because we operate within Canada and we have a very specific dynamic here where we have one of the second largest country in the world and a population of 30 or so million consumers that could span anywhere around. And we don't have a distribution center in each one of the provinces. Sometimes a sale could come from two different provinces where one might have a $10 cost, whereas the other one might have a $150 cost, right? So there's a lot of other components that come to play. Whereas when I was working at Adidas, in most of Europe, we were able to lock down with giant organizations like Adidas. We were able to lock down really good competitive rates. There would still be differences, but sometimes it'd be a difference between one country might cost us €1 versus the most expensive one might be €10. It's only a $10 difference or €10 difference, as opposed to in Canada where it could be a $100 difference in terms of shipping. And especially if we talk about the larger products that we have, because we are a provider that sells not only clothing, but home furniture, home appliances and whatnot.
Yeah. And that was my next question, is actually, for the purposes of my listener, give us an idea of the scale of Hudson's Bay. Tell us a bit about that, because there's a lot of international listeners and they may not have ever heard of it.
Yeah. So first of all, one of the biggest pieces, it's an organization which has roots of over 350 years. It was one of the first organizations or businesses that actually started in Canada and actually helped to set up Canada as a country. Hudson's Bay was initially a trader of beaver pelts and furs when it first set itself up in Canada, coming over from the UK. Since then, it's become into one of the big box retailers within Canada, focusing on fashion, beauty, home, and some home electronics as well. So we span all across Canada from all of our provinces, and we also have our e-commerce business. The e-commerce side is relatively new compared to the fact that we've been traditionally bricks and mortar. So it is something we've been focused on, but the consumer awareness across Canada, it is something that realistically every single Canadian knows of Hudson's Bay. So we carry a long-standing tradition within Canada, within the community consumer. We're known for Bay Days, big, great sales where it's that once a year or multiple times a year opportunity that you can go out and purchase a product at great savings. And we work with a lot of high reputable brands from the apparel space to home and home appliances.
And how many stores have you got?
I would say at this point around 80 stores across the country.
When you were doing your building out the retail media tech, did that include in store, or was it largely online that you were responsible for?
Yeah. So when we were building up the retail media tech, we were looking at the different opportunities, because obviously when you get into retail media, it's which one of our assets can be repackaged and leveraged with the brands and the vendors we work with. So we were looking at digital out of home. We were looking at signage in stores. We were looking at also like traffic and measurement components that happen in stores because we actually do have like traffic counters within our malls and be able to leverage that. At this time, because we operate in such a large country, we mainly focus on our digital space where we have set up ourselves with self-serve platforms. We have set up ourselves with the ability to leverage our Google and our social media instances to repurpose them for our retail media network. So that's where our primary focus is. But obviously, we're like anything else, we're looking to how do we extend that into the digital signage in store and be able to leverage that for our retail media network.
Brilliant. Okay, that's very clear. So how has your sort of attitude changed, having built it from the sales side and now sort of using other retail media networks that you're buying across? Are you treating those retail media networks differently now that you've been on the sort of retail media sales side?
So it's interesting, right? I'll always like in back to a project that I did when I was working at Adidas at global side, where we were one of the first organizations that got to work with Zalando in mentioning out their sponsor products. And I recall even coming across and eventually coming to a project where we were able to say, hey, we have X million euros to run this campaign during this period of time. And it was quite a large amount. And they came back to us and said, we weren't able to spend it all. And to me, that was like, let's say it was 20 million. I'm like, how were we not able to spend 20? We're giving you marketing dollars, like every single like agency at that and any other platform would have gone crazy for that and spent within a day if they needed to. And they said, no, unfortunately, your products just weren't where we needed them to be in order to sell them. There was higher competition that was willing to pay the same rate, and there was a lower. So from that perspective, it was just like, this is amazing. We now, as an organization, not only as a buyer, but we now have to update our actual assets, our content, our creative, our copy to make sure that when we get that traffic, we're maximizing this. And we're doing this for essentially Zalando's benefit because it's their product that they're selling, although we're the brand that's in collaboration with them. So using that knowledge and being able to do it here, knowing that it is a cycle and it's not a one way. The better we make that platform, the better the consumer feels and more confident the consumer feels with doing their shopping on that platform. So the better we continuously have that loop, it's not just about costing money and just showing off the act. It's about making the experience great. And that's what I was able to really pull from Zalando and try to incorporate here. It's about making sure that we have the right brands for the right consumer. We're not just selling it to whoever's ever willing to pay the best, but we have the right product showing up at the right time. And also that has the right content, copy, and assets to make sure that it's going to complete that circle there. And then it hopefully keeps that sale. And it's not we sold you something that didn't look like the imagery or didn't make sense and whatnot. And there's a higher return. So leveraging that information, really when we work with our vendors, we try to share that with them, let them know that we're making sure that when you show up, you're showing up for the right consumer. Hopefully going to give you that better ROAS, that better return, because we're not just showing you to everybody. We're showing you to that right tailored consumer. Now, in addition to that, I not only manage the retail media operations side, but also the corporate side. And in some organizations, you have that separate. We even had it separate here for a while, but it's the ability to leverage your retail media dollars as well as your organizational dollars really allows you to boost the organization's impact that we do across the country and the visibility we're able to garnish through that budget. But we're able also to then have a stronger impact with the vendors we work. So if you are one of the vendors that we end up saying, we're going to run this campaign with, and you're going to be at the front of it, you're traditionally getting more media dollars for the media dollars you're inputting. And what I mean by that, you're getting more impressions, you're getting more conversions, you're getting the best of both sides. So it's a partnership that we believe works both ways. And we're consistently taking, I wouldn't say shots, but we're both each taking an opportunity to help each other out. So we make sure that everyone grows in this.
I love that fostering of excellence in terms of content and product and all those things through creating a sort of competitive environment within the vendors. You know, that's fantastic, isn't it? So you can't actually spend this money unless you give us the best content and the best product and those things.
And at the end of the day, the consumer wins, right? So that's the focus.
Totally. Everyone wins because everything's getting better. So really interested that you've got the brand team and the partnerships or retail media team, all those campaigns running. But how does that team bit work? Is it actually you've got two separate teams? Is it one activation team for all of the campaigns, or have you got separate teams within that business?
That's a great question. So the way we separate is in terms of our planning and our planning teams, we actually have one separate team. We have separate teams for the corporate side versus the vendor side or the retail media side. Obviously, every single brand and vendor that works with us could have their different schedule, their different events throughout the year, maybe anniversaries that don't maybe align with us, right? So we have two different teams focusing on those and always trying to connect with each other in order to make sure how do we leverage vendor A's 15th anniversary with something that we might be having? And if not, how do we create it as an event and allow them to have that space within our side? That's in terms of the planning. When we're talking about the actual operations and the deployment, for certain tactics and tools that we use, such as our on-site technology, we have dedicated teams to that because it's not something that we necessarily use off-site the platform. We don't currently use the same vendors. Now, for anything that we use from our social media side to our search and shopping components, we leverage our in-house experts that have been running this for quite some time and have been doing this for the corporate side and traditionally with higher budgets. We leverage that same expertise to repurpose the retail media dollars to be able to use that for the vendors and the third parties. So then that way you're getting the best in class to do it, which is always interesting because one of the things that retail media also came into the support, it not only became a platform where you could support, but it also ended up becoming almost like a second, I don't want to say agency, but a second set of support for your organization. And to give you an example of that is when we work with some brands, and even I can even say this for some of the brands that I've worked with, like with Adidas and in my past experience, you might work with a global organization that is totally sophisticated, totally set up in their global market and maybe in their continental market, but maybe in a specific region and in Canada specifically, a lot of the organizations don't have a large setup. We also work with some organizations that don't actually have a Canadian team. So sometimes they come to us and say, hey, we need that support to not only promote the products we have with you at your store, but also we would need your support in setting up that marketing campaign because we don't have that expertise and that really knows that Canadian consumer or has access to that Canadian consumer. So you kind of start to see that evolution of not only just being a platform, but also being a partner.
Yeah. I mean, we've certainly seen that and we do that service for a lot of our clients. But when I was at Thomas Cook, we realized that there was a huge services element. So and actually we created the whole creative agency called 1841, which was doing all adaptation, localization, as well as big brand ideas and things, nothing that the retailer would never even do anyway. So TV production and all these amazing things. It's amazing how it can evolve when you do great work and you build trust. And then also research was the other big piece as well. So giving all that insight and doing bespoke research for partners, but through the filter of a retailer.
There's so much you could leverage. You can leverage your whole organization. I've seen organizations do it from leveraging their logistics and distribution centers to use that as a service, right? So it's anything and everything.
Yeah, Cardo do that here. That's really interesting. So tell me about the tech then, because obviously this is your specialty or was. We looked at the retail media stack. How is that sort of structured? Have you got from ad servers through to audience extension through to order management? How have you built that?
Yeah. So the first piece was making sure we were organized in terms of our actual customer management, right? Because it's making sure that we have all of the orders and whatnot. So really building up a proper CRM. So working with our partners to really develop our CRM and be able to have that information there because our team, essentially we have to develop a sales team that is able to connect with our vendors and brands, be able to keep up with the information that's coming in, understand all the orders and have that all in single solution. From there, we also worked with some of the best partners we had. It wasn't all in the beginning. It wasn't all first shot, great hit. So we had to test and try, go out to RFP multiple times. We had the opportunity to work with a lot of the great partners out there, but it just wasn't the solution for us because we were looking to build something unique here in Canada. We ended up landing with Microsoft Promote IQ for our in-house solution when it came to sponsored products. Great setup, great team, really supportive. And from what we've seen, they were just far more advanced than any of the partners that we actually work with. We were able to build a white labeled solution, which allowed us to not only provide that white glove service to our top vendors or vendors that are looking to gain that service and gain that extra assistance, maybe if they don't have the team developed in Canada, but also they were able to build a great and super easy to use self-serve platform where a vendor can go on, set up their campaigns, be able to target specific keywords or categories, cross-targeting, and also the implementation of audiences within that platform, all in one single solution, relatively easy. And then on the reverse side, knowing Microsoft and their power of harnessing their data for us to be able to see the data in great visualizations and reporting, which was available to us, the vendors, And then also just the total enterprise security in there and the administrator section where we can actually manage who sees what, who gets access to what. As you would know, like many organizations have resellers and vendors and different brands within the organization, right? So a tool that would allow us to have that type of setup or the ability to set that up in a different ways because every single organization is a little bit different. So that was our onsite. Took a little pause there, but that was our onsite. And then for the onsite as well, we also focus on the banners. It is something that we work with Google for that, providing that ability to launch our campaign banners, both within our category pages, our home pages. So we leverage that through Google, and then our tech stack out for offsite. And it's a mix of all of the social media platforms we worked with in the past, as well as obviously they're leveraging search shop through Google and Bing.
Brilliant. And are you getting up into sort of connected TV and digital out of home yet? Or is that on the roadmap?
It is on the roadmap. Obviously, there's quite a bit of appetite. The biggest concern when it comes to anything that requires quite a bit of creative, it's working with the brands, which makes it tends that does have its roadblocks, because you're essentially taking two organizations that both of them have their own brand and then trying to create content to that. And sometimes with the brands that we work with, because they're so global, we need to make sure it's approved at the multiple levels. So if we were to create a video, 30-second video, we need to make sure that our own creative branding team gets the approval, and then the other creative branding team also passes their approval. So because of that, it requires a lot more time, and we wouldn't be able to do that for every single campaign or event throughout the year. So sometimes we more focus on the sponsored products, the on-site banners, which are easier to produce or easier to set up because of the fact that it's mostly done through data feeds and whatnot.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I think, if you can get the brands that have the creative for connected TV and digital out of home, life's a lot easier. But so many don't, especially the smaller ones that don't have traditional level of budget.
Yeah, but I would say it's also how you distinguish it, right? Because many times we have brands that create that content, that create their content for their own DTC channel. We'll work with a lot of major brands that create their content for DTC channels. The concern is we may not sell every single product. So we've tried this in the past where we run a campaign. It does phenomenally well because obviously they have big media dollars. They have big names working with them. You run the campaign, consumer comes to our site and says, hey, you might have 5 out of the 7 products. Where's the other 2 products? So it creates that disconnect. So we want to make sure that when we create that content, let's partner up, but let's make sure that we have everything that the consumer is going to see in that ad in our location, which may not always be the case.
Brilliant. So obviously you've got quite a strong analytics background as well. So let's talk about reporting for a minute. Obviously you've seen it brand side and you've seen it retailer side. How are you bringing your skill set into that area and improving that for both yourself and for your partners?
Yeah. So I've always been, first off, before anything, an analyst at heart. I bring analytics into every single role that I come into. So I am actually one of those that love the reporting. I love to build the reporting. I see the art and beauty in the reports themselves. What I will say when it comes to the marketing, and as you would know as well, is that attribution is the biggest distinguisher from every single platform. The way you count a sale and the way I count a sale may be vastly different. And for anyone from the outside, they would consider, oh yeah, you did the marketing dollar and it generated sale. That should count. But then we have the argument in terms of what's the window? Is it within the first 7 days, within the 30 days? And then what percentage? Because if I'm advertising with 5 different platforms, how much should you get, right? So it's always a question of attribution. Having worked on the brand side and seeing the different attribution windows and the attribution parameters that every single banner uses and how they calculate whether it was a campaign was a success or not, it really threw me into a loop in the beginning because I thought you'd come into being a numbers guy. I always thought A plus B equals C. Great. Where's this? But you get into the world of marketing where it's a little more loose because there's different variables that you take into consideration. So that being said, when it came to developing our retail media network here at Hudson's Bay, I wanted to make sure that we were providing our vendors as much information as we could possibly give them. When it came to the aggregated sales, the daily sales, right? Obviously, we have to make sure that we're also not providing too much information that doesn't meet any privacy or any restrictions that we have to make sure. But at the end of the day, I want to make sure that they have access to the sales, to the traffic, to the conversions. So they're actually able to see pretty much what we're able to see. And then we can come together to the solution of saying, was this campaign a success? Was the ROAS correct? Did we meet that target? And have that ability to do that in real time. Now, obviously, each platform is going to give you some general information and it's going to give you that data specific to that platform. where me and my team also come in to support is how do we consolidate all that information and give you a holistic view? Because each one of those tactics may focus on different things. And in order to really have a great campaign and a great brand within this region, you got to make sure you're doing a full funnel attack. So that's where we come in and create that consolidated report that's going to give you that awareness and consideration view, as well as that conversion view to say, hey, this is where we put the dollars and these are the metrics that are specific to this specific part of the funnel. And based on that, we did great or we didn't do great. We'll benchmark it against other vendors or the collection of vendors within that category to let our vendors know this was a success. We've never seen it so high. Great job. We should continue doing this. Let's keep doing projects like this. Or you know what? Here's some learnings we might have to revisit and just minor tweaks in order to get this the right way we need to get it.
Yeah. And what are you using to measure the awareness and consideration piece then? Is it just reach and engagement and clicks, or how are you demonstrating that?
It is a traditional reach and impressions. It's also the length of video views. We'll also try to see, a lot of the organizations will use just the video views and not the length of video views. Where did we drop off, right? So really trying to do the analysis in the content and copy. We'll also do A/B tests and send out different variants to see what changed between the two variants and what performed better than another, and how do we use that learning. So I try to use the same analytics that we use internally and all that knowledge, right, from our engagement marketing teams and saying, hey, you're sending out 50 different assets. What learnings do you have there, right? And also speaking to our creative teams to say, what are we seeing and what data are we getting back that's working? And try to leverage that information when we're creating new campaigns for our vendors to say, you know what, traditionally, we're looking for these colors, this color palette when we're kicking off this type of campaign, or we're looking for these kind of points or this tone when we're using our copy.
Brilliant. So we've only got a couple of minutes left, and I'll always ask this question, but what's next? You've got now quite a body of experience in retail media. What's next for Hudson's Bay, and what's next for the industry?
Oh, what's next? This is one of those amazing pieces, right? Obviously, the biggest concern is with the death of the cookie. It's how are we going to be able to track offsite, and how do we make sure that we're still valuable to our organization? Now, the benefit that we have is because we're such a large organization within Canada that has quite a bit of awareness, we already get that traffic. So we've almost become a platform in itself that generates enough traffic that for some specific vendors, we're exactly where you need to be because the consumer you want is already coming here, as opposed to searching for them across the whole internet. Now, what's next is, for us, it's how do we continue to evolve our offering on site to make sure that we're continuously giving you the products that you need and you're looking for, as opposed to just showing you everything and anything. And that's sometimes a little difficult of a conversation, right? I'm sure everyone has the pressures from your targets and how do we continue to grow and excel. But I want to say, how do we continue to grow and excel sustainably? Because we don't want to become, at the end of the day, just a flyer where you're going to come onto the site and you're going to be bombarded with anything and everything on the site. And the consumer's going to say, I was coming here for product A, but instead I'm seeing 15 different products. This may not be the place for me. I want to have that organic feel to the site. You're coming onto the site and the products that we shared with you are the products that you're going to have a high propensity to because they're in the right category. They're great products that you can trust, and they're reputable products and have great reviews, and you're going to really purchase that product and be able to say, hey, this brand and Hudson's Bay who got it for me, this was an amazing purchase, and I want to do the rest of my purchases there, right? So how do we continue to evolve that and drive that lifetime value with our consumers? In terms of the industry, it's really interesting to see. I always take a cue from all the big organizations, right? You can't help but to look and see what Microsoft's doing, what Google's doing, what Amazon's doing, Walmart, and the different purchases there, right? Obviously, connected TV, a new area that's always been a high value and sector, but it's always been difficult to get into because you want to have those video assets instead of just still images. When you get into connected TV or when you get into YouTube or long formats, you want to have that video asset. Now, with the evolution of AI, you're starting to see that ability to create long format videos a little bit easier and a little bit quicker, whether you're doing it fully through AI or you're using the AI as a support or as a tool for your creative teams to leverage. So we've started to see that with a lot of the big vendors that we work with, to be able to implement that tool already to say, hey, you can create this creatives in a matter of seconds as opposed to having someone do it. But obviously there's brand guidelines that we have to follow within there. So it should be interesting where we're going to be a year from now, especially with the video making and the creative making, and how fast we'll be able to turn out and a campaign. For example, you can come to me and say, hey, I want to do a Christmas campaign. And in a matter of days, I can turn around and say, hey, I have a video that meets your guidelines, my guidelines, and it's the products we want it to be. And here's version A, or here's 10 other variants. And it was done in a quick turnaround time.
Amazing. And especially if you've got retailers going across multiple markets, we've run campaigns across 16 markets in different languages. To be able to actually push that out through AI, just automating it is just, the speed to market is so much.
100%.
Well, look, Jason, thank you so much. I think, unfortunately, we're out of time because that was fascinating. As I said, I often say I talk to you all day about this. But look, thank you so much for coming on. And really, really great to have somebody on who's got that sort of brand side experience as well as the sales side experience, and now sort of combining the two, running campaigns for both brand and partners. So look, a really great insight. I think our listeners are going to love this episode. So thank you for coming on. And I often ask you to please, will you come back in 6 months or so and tell us how you've got on and see where your journey has developed.
Of course. I really look forward to it. And Stuart, thank you so much for taking the time to meet with me. It was a great conversation.
You're welcome. Thanks, Jason. The Retail Media Moguls podcast is brought to you by Platform 195. To learn more about Platform 195 and how to connect retail media with intelligent marketing to accelerate growth, visit platform195.com. And then make sure to search for Retail Media Moguls in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Google Podcasts, or anywhere else podcasts are found. Make sure to click subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. And on behalf of the team here at Platform 195, thanks for listening.